Hi guys, it's Felicia coming to you from my deck, for those of you that are watching on video. And I'm very glossy, I know, because it's like we're having one of those heat waves here in the Midwest / Southeast. And yeah, but I love being outside. My happy place is my deck. And I do have I'm fortunate enough to have a covered deck and a ceiling fan. So we'll see how this goes. And I have no dogs out with me or out in the yard that can interrupt us with barking. And hopefully we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, hi, I'm Felicia. I am your host and coach for the Own It for Good podcast and my coaching program. I use an acronym called Own It, and it is sort of my personal guiding principle that I try to live by. I am a total work in progress myself, but this system and the acronym has really helped me personally. And now I am helping others to own it for good. Because when we are all taking personal responsibility for ourselves and taking our agency and our power back and really owning the good, the bad, the ugly, and, our full potential, like leaning into what that could be, that's good for not just us personally, but it's good for the world, right? I totally believe that, and that is now sort of my mission in life. So I wanted to do last week I gave an overview of the Enneagram and why I use it as a tool in my coaching practice and personally in my own growth. And so the Enneagram is a wonderful tool. If you haven't heard about it, or if you didn't have a chance to listen to that episode might make today's episode a little bit, make it make a little more sense. This is part 2, and I am going to, so the Enneagram is a personality system. It consists of 9 types, and it also includes, and why I wanted to do a part 2 is that in the broader sense, when you look at these things called wings, arrows, and subtypes, there's actually a lot more types. So there's 9 basic types, and then there are, when you add the wings in, we actually have a system of 27 types. So it can seem complex. People look at it, it's like a circle. It's a diagram with lines on it. The numbers are on the outside of the circle. Kind of looks like a clock face, but instead of there being 12 numbers, there's 9, with 9 being at the top, just like a 12 would be, the largest number, and then around. And then there are these things that connect these numbers. And when you're looking at it for the first time, of course you don't understand it. But it really is not that complicated. But some people they just have a mental block when they see it, and they just won't even let themselves go there. So I would like to sort of just simplify it, demystify it. It's really not that complicated. But it needs to be a little bit it is somewhat sophisticated and complex, or nuanced, maybe that's a better word, because humans are nuanced. So having these other aspects of the system actually help us see how let's take 9s, for example, how you could have 5 9s in a room, and they definitely would be able to sort of identify with each other, go, oh yeah, you do that too. Oh yeah, sure. But if they're out, other people knew them, they are still very different people. We're very individual, and the Enneagram system really allows for that, and also has some explanations for some of that. So let's dive into it. And I'm going to primarily, when I use examples and tell a few stories along the way in this episode, I'm going to stick with my type because that's what I know the best. I am a type 9. I have a dominant 1 wing, and I am a social subtype. And my mother is a 9. I'll pick on her. I'm not picking on her. She's awesome. But Mary is also a type 9. But, you know, when I was first learning the Enneagram and I was trying to type her, I did not think she was a 9 because she's very different than me. Like, we definitely have some things in common, but we are very different. And so I actually typed her as a 6, which we will get into in a minute, will actually make sense why I made that mistake. But she is a self-preservation subtype. And I think her wings, if she has any, they're fairly balanced. Or she's just more purely a 9 than I am. Or actually, I think because she's older and through some of her life experiences, I just think her wings are actually a little bit more balanced. But this subtype really explains some of the big differences between us. And then when I get to the arrows, that'll also make more sense. Okay, so let's start with the wings. So when we look at the circle of the Enneagram, and again, I'm going to use the 9 as an example, sits there at the top. 1 is on one side of it and 8 is on the other. So those are what the wings could be. If you think about the body of a bird, you know, that's where they got the wings from, the term wing. They, you know, these numbers sit on either. So as a body of the bird, I am a 9, and I could name one wing the 1 and the other wing an 8. So those are my only possibilities. So sometimes people will take the test and you get 3, they give you your top 3 numbers so that you can sort of type yourself, because it's not always accurate. So a lot of people, let's say if my test came out as a 9, a 7, and let's say my third number was 4. Those are always numbers that come up high on my tests. And so people might look at that and go, oh, I'm a 9 wing 7, because they think their second number is their wing. But when you look at the structure and you really think about, oh, what does a wing represent? It's attached to the main, you know, number or body. So you cannot, so that when you take your test and you get your numbers, it does not tell you, most tests out there do not tell you what your wing is. That is for you. Once you figure out what your type is, then you look on either side of your number, and then you can look and see, oh, do I borrow some of the traits from that number? So that's how that shows up and influences your main personality. So again, back to the 9. And I have a stronger or a more dominant 1 wing, which also has a separate name. So as a 9, I'm a peacemaker, but a 9 wing 1 is often called the dreamer. And how this shows up for me is, and the 1 is, just to remind you, is the perfectionist or the reformer. So they really want to be good. They want to do things right. And so that is how I was able to really, as a young child, I probably figured out the path to keeping everybody happy was to be a good girl. So, and I want to do things right. And both types have some trouble making decisions, but man, a 9 wing 1, I can spin an analysis paralysis like nobody's business. But I'm very nice. I want to make everybody happy. I will often, sometimes even act like a 2 as the helper. I've been mistyped as the helper because what do you need me to be? I'll just be it. Whatever this situation calls for, I will do it. I will be it. Now, if I had an 8 wing, which actually I'm working on because, we need to be balanced. If you had only one wing, or if you only used one wing, you'd fly in circles. Well, yeah, I feel like I've been flying in circles or a dog chasing its own tail for most of my life. I'd like to stop that and be a little more balanced. So when I look at the number on the other side of myself, that is the 8. And that is the challenger. That is definitely not my comfort zone. I do not like to challenge people. I like to tamp down any anger that I feel. I'm known to be very out of touch with anger. I don't even know I'm angry. And somebody else might pick up that I'm angry before I even do. I'll be like, no, I'm in denial of my anger. And I'm the go along to get along person. That's often what the 9 is known for. We kind of merge with others. We're the vanilla ice cream of the personalities. We can blend. We go along to get along. All those things. So you can see how, just to pause for a moment while I'm saying that, one thing I wanted to say on the last podcast, and I probably should have started off with this one, but since I'm a free flowy type speaker, is the Enneagram is like Google Translator for personalities. It is so helpful. Like when you get it and you're going into it, you're like, oh, that's why I do what I do. Like it helps even you understand why you do what you do. And when you can look around the world and see that everybody is a type, you have more compassion and you can see why they do what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, when they were speaking gibberish, or you thought they should have been speaking your language, and you're like, I don't understand. Duh, this is the way it should be. And they're not picking up what you're putting down. Now you can see why. You guys are we are all speaking different languages. So anyway, back to the wings. So as a 9, the way that this is useful to know the wings is that I know, okay, I'm imbalanced over here with leaning into my 1. I'm also married to a 1, so that could also be why I was even attracted to that sort of yin and yang thing. And that feels very secure to be good and right and righteous. But imagine 2 1s living together. Oh my goodness, we are right fighters. And we get into a lot of arguments and really we'll fight to the death on who's right, even over some of the silliest things. So we are winding our way out of that, which the Enneagram is being very helpful. And he is a 1 with a 9 wing, which is so interesting. So we always knew that we had picked our opposite, but then the Enneagram actually was like, you literally picked your opposite, at least in our case. So if I want to grow and become more balanced in my personality, I need to lean over to what I have access to. So this is what I have direct access to. It's part of the anger triad, or the instinctual triad is 8 on the other side of me. That is being able to speak up for myself. That is being able to fight for others. Now, I was always able to do that as a mama and for other people, but not always so much for myself. Learning how to say what I want. You might know a 9 if you're asking, hey, what do you want to go eat tonight? And they're like, I don't know, whatever you want. And we literally mean that. Like, we want the people in our lives to be happy, and we're okay with our needs or our wants all not getting met. We're like, and we literally can be okay with anything. Like, we can see all sides of everything. We are like, well, yeah, I think maybe I could. Yeah, even though I might have originally wanted Italian, I think I could go with Chinese. We're very flexible a lot of the times. Well, let me back up. We're going to get into, as we go into this deeper, this might explain why some 9s are more easygoing than others. And but for me, I need to learn the word no a lot. I need to say, no, I don't want Chinese. I want blah, blah, blah. Or do you want to watch this show tonight? No, I would like to read. Or, so that is sort of a path for me, and that's very uncomfortable. If you are a people pleaser and this is not a pattern of behavior for you, and depending on what your number is, and when you take a look at this, this will make more sense to you. So that is one way that the Enneagram can help you own it, is even through this knowledge about the wings, and even a path of growth for, through, becoming more balanced in your wings. Okay, now we're going to go on to the arrows. And this is where you look at the circle of the Enneagram, and then you see all of these lines connecting numbers. These are called the arrows. And these are the lines of growth or integration or security. When you're feeling secure and things are going well, you will go to another number on the personality wheel or system. And when you're in stress, you will go to another number. So depending on what your number is, you will look at those two arrows, and the number going away from you is what you go to in stress. The number that is coming towards you is the number that you go to in insecurity. So what does that mean? That sounds very confusing, right? Wings and arrows. Well, again, I'm going to stick with the 9 as an example. The 9 goes to a 6 in stress, and in growth or security or integration, I go to 3, the achiever. And these 3 numbers are actually, they sit in the center of each triad. So the 9 sits in the middle of the instinctive triad, the 3 in the middle of the feelings triad, and the 6 in the middle of the fear or thinking triad. And these 3 are all related. They're the only 3 on the Enneagram that are consistently like we are related. So if you're a 9, 3, or a 6, we are connected. And we are often, so we're the same size, different sides of a similar coin. As a 9, I can see all the ways that we can, in order to be a peacemaker, I see all sides of an argument. So I can build a bridge between, points of view. That's sort of my superpower. That's another analogy I like to use. I should have said that in my other podcast, is I really like, these are our superpowers. If you think of the Enneagram, like, we are all a group of superheroes. And depending on which number you are, it'll tell you what which superhero type you are and what your power is. So as a 9, my superpower is this gift of being able to, bring people together, bring ideas together, integrate things, see the commonality between seemingly unrelated things, or where there can be no way, I can find a way, whether it's with people getting along or ideas or whatever. So that's my superpower. A 6 is the loyalist, but they're in the thinking or the fear triad. They see all the ways that things can go wrong. So it's the same superpower, but used in just a different way. So it's very easy to see that when I'm in stress, which I often was as a parent of young children, oh boy, I think I was living in 6 energy for about a decade, which is also why I started making Chardonnay my best friend. Anyway, side note. So when I'm in stress, I start to see my superpower of seeing all the positive sides of things goes to the negative, and then I can get very anxious and fearful, just like a 6. And I have a daughter that's a 6, so this is a really interesting dynamic as a parent. Anyway, so the other arrow, when I'm feeling secure and things are going well and I'm growing and things are good, I can go to the high side of the achiever, which means I am getting things done, which is actually, knock on wood here, how I feel like I'm showing up to life most times now, thanks to the help of the Enneagram and some other work that I've done, and owning it, like just owning it. Like I have some tools now to really take responsibility for my life. I'm willingness is a big one. And I'm willing to even sometimes take a beating to my ego. Actually, I'd love to just beat that thing to death and get rid of it completely, but it keeps showing up. So that's the challenge for all of us. And that's usually what gets in our way, is our egos. But I borrow a lot of the characteristics of a 3. And the 3 is also known as a chameleon. Like, they can see all sides of things too, but they are like, who do you need me to be? What do you need to get done? I will do it. And they will become and do things in situations to get things done and achieve and perform. So that's sort of how 9s, 6s, and 3s are all related, and we all. So the 6 in security will come to a 9. So my daughter can, take on some of my better qualities, or not my. I take too much credit of a 9's qualities. And then when she is in stress, we can go to the low side of a 3. And so anyway, that is how that all works. So depending on what number you are on the Enneagram, look at those numbers, and that will also should resonate with you. So if you're having trouble figuring out what your numbers is, knowing this system of the wings and the arrows is actually a way that you can kind of reverse engineer back into your personality. So you could look at the wings and the arrows and go, oh yeah, when I'm in stress, I think I act more like this number. And then you could look and see what that's related to, and you might be able to back in, because there are some people that are like, I don't know what my type is. And this is a way that we can help you figure it out. Okay, I am, with it, just keeping time in mind, I want to go on to the next aspect that can be very helpful, which are the subtypes. Now, the subtypes are consistent among all of the types. So this is an underlying personality trait that applies to all the numbers. And this is self-preservation, sexual or the attraction feature of a personality, or a tendency, maybe that's a better word, and social. So we have the self-preservation, the sexual, and the social. And now this is where we're really getting somewhere. And like I started off telling a little bit of a story at the beginning about my mother and I, both type 9s, but both very different. I am a social 9 wing 1, and she is a self-preservation 9 with, I think, pretty balanced wings. She has a lot of 8 and 1 characteristics, but of course she's got some years on me and some life experience and a divorce and some other things that maybe have helped her already, which that does tend to happen when you look at older people that are further along in their journey of life, and if they've done some growth work or some things that they've had to work through, that you do find that tendency where they might have balanced out. But maybe, when she was 40, she was maybe had a more dominant wing. But now, at her age and with her life experience, she is fairly balanced. But then this is where I was like, well, why are we so different? So then I kept learning through the Enneagram. And then it was like I learned more about the subtypes. And then I was like, oh, oh, this explains a lot. And it also, and I have a lot of people that look at me and, here I'm doing a podcast. I've built 2 businesses and do pretty well. And I'm a 9. Like, that's kind of unusual for a 9 to do this type in general, when you're just sticking with stereotypes, because we're known to be like the sloth and, like I have to watch out, we might want to sit and watch TV all day, not always known as self-starters and, the achievers. But yet I have access to that, because I know that through the arrows, but also I have done a lot of work owning it, like growing and developing myself. And so that is, but I am also a social subtype, which does show up with a lot of different energy. And maybe there's a lot of 9s that have a self-preservation aspect or that subtype. And so they might be the stereotypical 9 that you might think of. So anyway, I digressed a little bit, was specifically on the 9. But okay, so self-preservation, what does that mean? That means that you have a tendency to be concerned with having enough resources. You might be more concerned with safety, comfort, health, energy, well-being. These people tend to be grounded, practical, serious, some may be introverted. These are our nesters that seek domestic tranquility. And that's really interesting to know. And again, this applies to all the numbers. So once you learn your number, it might be helpful for you to dive into the subtypes. So there's self-preservation 1, self-preservations 2, 3, this is a universal thing. You're going to be one of the 3 subtypes as a main character. Of course, we are people, so we have all of them. We are not just one exclusively. It's just what are you more dominant in, just like the overall Enneagram. We are the whole personality. We just happen to be more dominant or hovering over this one number more. But once we know the system and the full personality, we have access to all of it. So that's what I really love about the Enneagram, especially with owning it. Like, this situation here really calls for me to maybe pull on some investigator traits. I really need to dig in and do some research and think and move slowly and really make, vet things out. Or gosh, this situation really calls for some helper energy, like people need to be taken care of here. Like, I have access to all of that, and you do too. And knowing what might be holding you back at a certain point from doing that, or what your defaults might be, can help you get out of it. You can own it and then throw it away or put it to the side, at least for a minute. Okay. Second subtype is the sexual attraction or the attraction. Now, this is not just people going around wanting to hook up with each other. This is that, chemistry. Some people seek chemistry, and I love the word. One of the words that the Riso and Hudson use is juicy. Like, they like juicy energy. They have an intense drive for stimulation. They are very aware of chemistry between people, and they like intensity. And even with maybe experiences and objects, I think of, and again, there are 9s that have this subtypes, 4s that have this subtype. Like, this is a universal thing. So these folks tend to be more aggressive, competitive, charged, and emotionally intense. So even there are some peacemakers out there that have these characteristics. So that this system, the subtypes right here, can really help us understand why within types there are big differences, even though there's a lot of commonalities. And again, the thing that we really have to keep in common, and the gift of the Enneagram, is it's not about what you do, it's about why you're doing it. What is your motivation? Okay, so so did I already say sexual? They tend to be aggressive, competitive, charged, emotionally intense. They have a lot of energy. They're constantly moving towards intense stimulation. Excuse me. I can think of one of my sisters. I'm not going to name names, but she is a 7, and I am almost positive that she is this subtype. And there is a lot of energy there. And that really explains why we love each other dearly. But, you know, we have like a time limit on the amount of time that we can really be together with it, you know, because she gets bored with me. I'm like, oh my God, it's too much. So we can definitely, but now, you know, the Enneagram has helped us to understand this about, and then I was like, oh, again, Google Translator. It was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get why we weren't always getting each other, even though we loved it. And as, you know, a 7 and a 9 actually have a lot in common. In fact, I've been mistyped as a 7. They have that optimism and a sort of the love of life there, the joie de vivre. They really can see the bright side of everything, the silver lining. So they have a lot in common with how they see the world. You can imagine the dreamer and then the enthusiast. You know, but there's enough there that, you know, and I think it was more in the subtypes where it was like, wow, we have a lot of different energy. So now we will go on to the third subtype, which is the social. These folks are adaptive. They adapt themselves to the needs of the social situation or the group. They are aware of how their actions affect those around them, and they seek personal connection, and they want to know how they are more concerned with how they will impact the community and even beyond. And these folks tend to be warmer, open, engaging, and socially responsible. And when I learned that, I was like, oh, well, that's me. This is totally why I want to be even sharing this and doing this podcast, like, and creating a program called Own It, and why I'm attracted to being a part of a large community like SoberSys and some other places, and why I want to be a coach. Like, I want to help you. Like, and it's interesting. I have a funny little story, and then I'll kind of wrap it up for part 2. But when I was a young mom, well, I'm still a young mom, but when my kids were younger, I think is what I really meant to say. When my kids were younger, I developed a saying, and I shortcutted it to AO. You can see there's a tendency here for, I like acronyms, don't I? And AO. And I could say this when we were at Target and they'd start acting up. I'd be like, AO. Or we could be out at an amusement park, whatever, anywhere out in public. I could say the letters AO, and they would just like, poop. This stood for awareness of others. So right there, I literally, like, this is me. I am always aware of how my behavior, the behavior of kids, is affecting other people. So compare that also with the 9 personality, and like, I'm on hyperdrive with this. And no wonder when I was in an unhealthy mode, or when I didn't understand that other people didn't operate this way, because I didn't have Google Translator for personalities, aka the Enneagram, why I was so frustrated all the time, and going to 6 in stress, and then reaching for my 3 glasses of Chardonnay a night. Like, I'll just, okay, I don't care. You don't care? I don't care. And I'll just pretend I don't care. But I was constantly so tuned in as a 9 for operating in this way. And then pair that with this social subtype. You know, I was overwhelmed a lot with seeing how everybody's behavior, mine, my kids, my husband, everybody's behavior everywhere I go in the world, everybody's behavior is affecting everybody else. And understanding that when so-and-so, I could even remember this when I was a child, watching my parents argue, or when there would be the elephant in the room and there was all this tension, and I'd be like, why aren't you people like talking? Like, I was paying attention even as a child to this type of thing. So this was, the Enneagram, huge light bulbs for me for owning it and understanding myself. That is why I can own it, because now I understand. You can't own something that you don't know what it is. It's a diagnostic tool. That's another great, way to think about, the Enneagram. If you've got some healthy behavior in your life and you don't know what's happening or why you're doing what you're doing, this is a diagnostic tool that can get straight to the heart of the matter and, then can help you deal with your shiitake and get it turned around. And not only that, it doesn't only diagnose, but then it says, and here's your prescription. But through the use of the wings, what we know about the wings, through the knowledge of the subtypes, through the knowledge of the arrows, and what we didn't even go into in either episode was when you dive into the Enneagram, is that there is a level of health that is that is outlined for each number, and the behavior of what you look like at this level of health. So there's the low health, and there's a few levels within that. There's average, and then there's the high. And this is where, when we go back to the passion or those deadly sins, this is where at the lower end you're wallowing in that mud of, for me as a 9, that's sloth. I'm wallowing in the mud of sloth, which, again, going back to my own personal story and journey of, and not even knowing that I was playing with kryptonite when I was innocently, and society was encouraging me and to grab the glass of Chardonnay to take the edge off. Boy, I was doing a lot more than that, If any 9s out there are listening and you are even drinking could be considered a moderate amount like I was, like, you might want to give me a call or think about knocking that off. That is like kryptonite. If you already have the tendency to be able to check out, move to sloth, inaction, checking out, abdicating responsibility, that wine is going to just keep you stuck in that mud. And it will do that for any person, actually. So maybe we'll have some more episodes about addictive behavior and alcohol. And the pitcher plant of alcohol. So anyway, then most of us are kind of in average health, which, there could be worse things, but who wants to be average? I don't want to be average. I've been there long enough. I want to be up here. My virtue is right action. That's what I want to live in, right action. And I now have a path, and I can see the levels of health. So if I love to do a check-in or a diagnostic check-in with the Enneagram, just to see, what am I looking like? Oh, yeah, I've kind of backslid a little bit. Oh, I'm doing pretty good. All right. So this actually is something you can check in with on a regular basis and see how you're doing. And there's a prescription of exactly what you need to do in a practical way. Like for me, saying the word no, learning how to make friends with anger and speaking up and owning it. So anyway, I'd love to get some feedback, what you think about this. I'm still figuring all this out and learning how to link up my website and how to schedule appointments with me and all of that. I think I can learn how to go and do that back with anyway, you don't need to know all those details. I don't even know those details. So I just know I love talking about this stuff, and I really want to help, you. I want to help each and every one of you, because the Enneagram is like the bomb. Like, we all have access to the perfect personality because our creator, God, he created us, and he showed us, you know, through Jesus, the perfect whole personality, and why he's such a good example, and why, but we're only people, so we're imbalanced. We're a little bit, you know, wonky, leaning to one side, and the Enneagram shows us what side that is, but that we have so much to offer, and hopefully it will also help you love your neighbor well, because we understand who we are and whose we are, and also we start to see our neighbor and even the people that frustrate us the most in our life with maybe more love and compassion, because God loves them too. So without that, anyway, I'm going to sign off. What I was going to say didn't come out well, so I am just going to, sign off and see you next week, and tell me what you think about the Enneagram, if you're as excited about it as I am. All right, bye.